Professor Ramos, do you want to come up? Hi, everyone. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Thank you for joining us. My name is Alejandra Marchevsky, and I'm a professor and chair of the Department of Women's, Gender, and Sexuality Studies at Cal State LA. And this is my colega.
I am Professor Lita Ramos in Chicana O, Latina O Studies.
And we want to welcome you today to our celebration of the incomparable legacy of Dolores Huerta, 93 years of fierce activism and leadership. And before we get started, I want to thank and acknowledge some of our partners in this event. And so Professor Ramos and I are here representing two departments that collaborated, the Department of WGSS and Chicanx Latinx Studies. But we also have co-sponsorship and support from the Center for the Study of Genders and Sexualities at Cal State LA, the Office for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and of course, the Dolores Huerta Foundation. So I want to thank those campus co-partners. I also want to lift up three folks who have done a tremendous job in bringing this event together. Two of them are standing right over there. They are the leaders and founders of the WGSS Student Club. So on the right, we have Sofia Portillo, and on the left, we have Bridget Curry, and they're going to be introducing Dolores Huerta and doing a land acknowledgement and facilitating a discussion, a back and forth with Dolores in just a few minutes. I know that Professor Ramos has been involved in some organizing here in Boyle Heights around the street for Dolores Huerta. So I asked her to say just very briefly a few words about that local organizing before we bring Sophia and Bridget up to kick off the event.
Thank you, Alejandra. I wanted to share that the fierce feminista Dolores Huerta has a long legacy here at Cal State LA, in East LA. In 2017, for our 50th anniversary of Chicana O, Latina O Studies, she was our inaugural speaker. In addition, we had the fabulous Alice Bagg, who sang a song to Dolores Huerta, which was about creating a Dolores Huerta street. After that event in 2019, we actually worked on, I was the lead producer for Dolores Huerta Square, which is on First and, oh, now I'm blanking on my First and, oh, my brain. Right by the Boyle Heights City Hall.
Right. Yeah, about 1 block from there.
1 block from which is actually the space where Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez both started the UFW. So Central CSO, that was it used to be called before Boyle Heights City Hall, and that is where we have the formation, and then urban Chicanos were involved then with the farm workers movement. And so we have a long legacy, and we hope we have a Dolores Huerta street in the future. Right now we have barely 2% streets named after women in the city of Los Angeles. And so we really need to claim space, occupy space. Our fierce women need to be acknowledged and honored. And so we're going to hope that we all work on that for a Dolores Huerta street in the future.
So just to give you a sense of what we have planned between now and 5 o'clock when this event is over, we're going to have a live Q&A discussion with Dolores Huerta, who will be joining us via Zoom in just a minute. Please think of questions that you want to ask her. She's very excited to meet Cal State LA students and engage with you. After the Q&A, we will be screening the 2017 documentary, which is titled Dolores, which was produced by Carlos Santana and co-produced by the Bratt brothers, right? Benjamin Bratt and his brother are the directors of the film. So let me call up our WGSS student club leaders, Sophia And Bridget, please come up and lead us into this beautiful dialogue that we're going to have with Dolores Huerta. And thank you again, everyone, for being here today.
Okay, there we go. I will be starting with a land acknowledgement. So with great respect, Cal State LA acknowledges the Tongva people as the traditional caretakers of Tovangar. The Tongva world, including the Los Angeles Basin, South Channel Islands, San Gabriel and Pomona Valleys, and portions of Orange, San Bernardino, and Riverside counties. Cal State LA is located within these lands. As an institution located on unceded Tongva land, we pay our respects to the ancestors, elders, and our relatives/relations, past, present, and emerging. Consistent with our values of community and diversity, we have a responsibility to acknowledge and make visible the university's relationship to Native peoples. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty and will work to hold Cal State LA more accountable to the needs of American Indian peoples. This was prepared by Dr. Kimberly Robertson and Tongva Elder Julia Bogany in 2020.
We are so excited to welcome Dolores Huerta to our Cal State LA community. She has committed her life to fighting for social justice. She co-founded the United Farm Workers with Cesar Chavez, and at 93 years old is the president of the Dolores Huerta Foundation for Community Organizing. We will learn more about her incredible life through the film Dolores, but for now, welcome Dolores Huerta.
Hi, everybody. And thank you very much for coming to see the documentary and for joining us today. And I've been asked to share with you students about what can we do to make take advantage of this Latino Heritage Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, and what can we do going forward. And I do want to say to all of you that I think if we share our story, each one of us has a distinct story, because when we talk about Hispanics, and we know that that word Hispanic is because of the language Spanish that we all speak, but we all have different stories. And so it's really good to share your own story with others, because we have, as I said, unique stories, because we're not all exactly the same. And then also, I would like to ask you to share the story of the documentary that you're going to be seeing, because this documentary, Dolores, which Carlos Santana produced, as I said earlier, it really tells you the story about the farm worker movement. And the farm worker movement was important because it was also the beginning of the Chicano movement. As we know, the school walkouts that happened in Los Angeles and then around the country, where Chicano students, Latino students were demanding that they wanted to see more teachers that looked like them, more classes that looked like them. Many people fought very, very hard to get Chicano studies or Latino studies in all of our universities. And it took students like yourself that made that happen. And when you see this, you'll see some of the beginnings of that movement that happened way back in the 60s and the 70s, and what people went through to make that happen. And I also, we want to share with you that we know that we talk a lot about, thank you very much for, by the way, for sponsoring this, the Women's Studies Group and Gender Studies Group, because we know that it is so important that we acknowledge women's leadership and that we need to have here in our country, because we want to uplift feminism and we want to downplay the machismo that exists in our Chicano culture. And we want to know what students can do in the future. Well, we know that we have a lot of work to do. Our population of Latinos is growing. You know, it would look at even the southern states like Oklahoma. We have 100,000 people there. In places like North Carolina, 400,000. Of course, in California, I think we're over 40% right now of the population. So as our population grows, that also means that we have more responsibilities in terms of what we can do to make not only our community better and to help our community, but also what we can do to make our state and what we can do to make our country more progressive and more accountable, and also to provide more resources that we need for our community, the Latino community, as we grow. And I want to share some words that Cesar Chavez would say to students. He would say, well, you know, when you're in school, you learn about history, you talk about history, you write about history. But when you become an activist, you make history. So I want to invite all of you to become activists and to make history. We know that right now in our United States, we are in a very perilous moment. A lot of things are going on around us that we know that they are going to affect our lives. And so I want to invite all of you to become activists. There's many organizations, I'm sure, on your campus, in the community. We're going into an election year, and we're going to need all hands on deck. We need everybody to be involved because we know that we have fascism that is coming into our country. And when we think about what fascism looks like, we can see what happened back in Nazi Germany, you know, when millions of people were killed because of fascism, because they were Jews or because they were gypsies or because they were disabled or because they were gay. And we see some of that ugliness that is happening in our own country in places like Texas and in Florida, where they have attacks on our LGBTQ population, and where women are being criminalized because they want to stand up for abortion and for their reproductive rights. And we can see that immigrants are also being criminalized. And we know that we need to stop this. We need to stand up for people of color in our society, for low-income people. And our job going into the future is to make a better world. All of you, I know that when you were born and you were thinking as you grew up, what am I going to do with my life? How am I going to make this a better world than when I got here, okay? And that's our goal, to make a better world. And I want to say for the women too, especially, that we're fighting for more women's leadership, because we know that, as Coretta Scott King said, if women have power, then we will be able to end all wars. We will have peace in the world when women take power. And when I say women, I mean feminists, because feminists have values of cooperation and of sharing and of caring for each other. And we know that the men in the room here today, and thank all of the men that are in the room also, because I know they also have feminist values, and they believe the way that we do, that we want to make a better world for everybody. So we have a big opportunity to do this as we go into this next election. Starting in March, we're going to have primaries, and then in November, the general election. And I want to invite all of you, please, to, again, become activists and get out there and make sure and you organize all of your fellow students, your families, your neighbors, and everybody that you know to get out there and vote. Si se puede. And now we're going to, I think, answer some questions that are coming from the students. Thank you.
If you need the question repeated, we will have somebody repeat it.
Okay.
But let's see.
Thank you, Jamie.
We're just adjusting the volume. Oh, it's working. Okay, wonderful. So maybe, oh, you're back. That was so quick.
Hello. Can I? All right. Hi, my name's Noah. I just wanted to ask a quick question, because I know the CSU serve marginalized communities. That's why it's been so pivotal to things like the Chicano movement and stuff. And in modern day times, the CSU students face injustices like the increases that are being put on us with our tuition because of the Board of Trustees and the privatization of our public schooling. I was wondering if you have a comment for the Board of Trustees due to these injustices.
Could you repeat the question, Jamie? Or someone? Mhm.
Say one more time. Yeah, I was here, I'll come a little bit closer. So right now the students at the CSUs face injustices such as like the fee hikes that the board of trustees are putting on us right now. It should be above 30% by the time that they're done. I was wondering if you have a comment or anything to say to the board of trustees in regards to these injustices.
Yes, I do. Yeah, they should not be hiking the fees up right now because we know education is the one foundation of our democracy that is going to keep our democracy safe. And we have to keep fighting to make sure that all students eventually get all university education, but that they get it free of charge, you know? Because we are the richest country in the world, and it is a sin that we do not have free education for all of our students in the United States of America. Yeah, they should not be hiking fees at all. In fact, they should be eliminating fees. And I guess this is one thing that students can be working on. And you know, I don't know how long it's going to take, but if we look at other countries in the world, like in Scandinavia, and even in places like Latin America, that all students get a free education, and that's what we have to fight for. You cannot have a democracy if people cannot get an education. And I like to quote this Spanish philosopher, Jose Ortega y Gasset. He wrote a book called The Revolution of the Masses. And this is what he said: if you do not have an educated citizenry, then you will have the corrupt, the greedy, and the powerful that will rule a nation. And that is what is happening to our society right now. We have a lot of people out there, I call them the haters, by the way, you know, that are really trying to destroy education right now. And so if anything, we should be providing more money for education. And when we think of our country, our budget for the Defense Department is huge. You know, our budget for the agricultural department is huge, but the budget for education is not, it does not match those other budgets, but education is even more important right now than the Department of Defense. So that's one thing that students, we have to, you know, put that on our agenda. Free college for everyone. We can make it happen.
Hi, Dolores. My name is Bridget, and I have a quick question for you. You're calling all of our students to action to be activists, get out there, and create change, that we need all hands on deck. But in today's society, we have hyperpolarization happening, and we have the reality of social media, which heightens all of the negativity. What advice would you give to our young activists and thought leaders who may be feeling discouraged right now?
Well, I would say that we've got to make our side larger, and we've got to make our communications stronger and better, and get people to be able to discern the difference between what's fake news and what's real news, and to, you know, put our stories forward, which means that we just have to work a lot harder. And then we also have to organize more students and more people out there to hear our side of the story, and so that people can just, like I say, they can discern between negative news and wrong news with the right news, the right information that we need to have. It's going to take a lot of work, but that's what you know, democracy is all about. It's about us working as hard as we can. And I could say, like, when we started the union, and you'll see a couple of instances in the movie where people would say, oh, that they would call us communists, or they would say that the union didn't represent the workers. And so we just had to work harder to make sure that our story got out, and that the false stories were not listened to, or were not, they could prove that they were not right, okay? So we just have to work a lot harder to get our stories out and get the other ones ignored. And I guess one more thing I could add to that is not to let anything negative affect what you're doing. You know, they have a saying in Spanish that says, "Tíralos a locos o borrachos." You know, when people say negative things and not let them affect us, you know, just pretend that they're not there, or say, you know, it's just like if people are kind of nutty and, you know, don't pay attention to what they say, you know, because sometimes it does become demoralizing, especially when you're working, trying to do the right thing, and then have other people challenge what you're doing, or they make what you're doing seem like just the opposite of what you're trying to do.
We have a follow-up here.
Okay, so then as a follow-up, how would you advise those of us who feel like we're working alone to build community? How do we get authentic community to band together and fight this good fight?
The main thing is that we have to really have faith in ourselves, and that what we're saying and what we're doing is the right thing. And then we have to not be, let me put it this way, we have to build up the courage to talk to people. And even when we know that some people are going to reject us, or they're not going to pay attention, or they're not going to believe what we're saying, but, you know, speaking to other people to try to get them to join the movement. And I know it's hard for students. I know you have a lot of homework. I know a lot of you actually not only have to do homework, but you have to probably have work study, or you have other jobs that you have to do. So I know that students, you have limited time to be able to talk to other students, or even limited time to talk to your own families about the issues that that are challenging us today. But if you can just think of, I'm going to just take an hour or 15 minutes, and then take the courage to talk to someone else, because I know there's a lot of negativity right now among students, especially about politics. There's a lot of young people that say, well, I don't believe in voting. So we have to explain to them that voting is the only game in town. In a democracy, voting is the only game in town. And the only way that we can correct policies or make the policies that we want is by electing progressive people to our legislature, into the Congress, into the city council, into the school board, or to the trustees of the college that right now, as you mentioned, that they're trying to raise your rates. So we have to elect people to the trustee boards of the colleges that will actually fight for students and not raise the rates. Maybe they can cut some of their salaries at the top, okay? So that they don't have to raise the rate for the students. So, you know, but so we have to elect people that are going to fight for us. And the only way that we can make that happen is by voting. So I just want to say, you know, talk to students so they don't get discouraged about voting, because that's what the haters, they don't want our people to vote, because they want to control the politics. They want to have the power, to make the laws that they want, which are usually against us. So voting is the only game in town. And I think you all know this, that young people probably I think about 60% of young people are still not voting. We had more young people voted in the last election, but we've got to up that number from maybe what it is now to maybe 100%. Because students, think about this, it's always been young people that have changed the policies of the United States of America. Recently, we saw a lot of people that were on strike, the Writers Guild, the actors, the United Auto Workers, the hotel workers, they're all striking and they're picketing. Well, it was young people like those of you in the room that fought to get labor rights in the United States of America. It was young people like you that ended the Vietnam War, because they were the ones that were marching. They were the ones that ended the draft in the United States of America. It was young women like yourselves that also started the women's movement that got women the right to vote. So it is all of you. And again, we can talk about the movement that you'll see in the documentary today that made things better for farm workers. But it's young people like yourself that have been able to change the policies. And right now, it is young people like yourself that are going to determine what is the policy of the United States going on into the future.
Hi, thank you for being here. My name is Gino. Oh, go right up here. Okay, can you see me? Yeah. So my question is about language, and I know you said in a recent interview that you identify as a Chicana, but you don't care for certain terms like Hispanic or Latinx. So I'm just wondering, like, how can our language be inclusive but also not, colonizing? How do we negotiate some of the newer terms and which terms do you suggest that we use and why? Thanks.
That's a great question, and I'm sure all of us in the room had that same question. Okay, we're all, as I mentioned earlier when I started, is that we all have different histories in our Latino heritage, that we might say. I was born in the state of New Mexico. My family goes back 14 generations in New Mexico, but there are many people who know that are the children of immigrants that just came to this country, that were born in other countries, and yet we're all put under this one label of Latinx. So I don't think we've come up with a good word. The one thing I do want to say, I would like all of us to really celebrate our indigenous roots, because of the word Latinx, even the word Hispanic, it talks about the colonizers, the Europeans that are ones that colonized the Americas. And there's a lot of cruelty that is behind those words when we think about that. But I believe that they use the word Hispanic because it somehow covers us all, because we all speak the Spanish language. Although we know there are many indigenous languages that people don't speak the Spanish language. So we have a lot of ethnic groups, even in our, you might say, in our umbrella of being Hispanic. So I don't think we've come up with a good word. Yeah. So I myself call myself a Chicana, and I'm sure that other people maybe don't like that word, that they prefer the word Latinx instead, or they prefer the word Hispanic. So I guess each of us has to identify ourselves as who we think we are.
Dolores, I just want to thank you for inspiring me. And I know that you have a good relationship with Cal State LA. I want to say or acknowledge that, with the CFA, with Lita Ramos, and that Students for Quality Education on campus, they're actually doing a lot of wonderful and important work. And I teach environmental justice, and I'm going to just throw it out there because we had this conversation in class, is that they want to organize another walkout. Okay, in terms of that tuition raise, the idea is to organize another walkout. So how many of you would be in if we had a walkout? Okay, so the reality is that for you have more technology access than we need you. We need you. So they created an Instagram about it. So I'm just saying that we need to continue to do what you're doing, and thank you for inspiring us.
Well, thank you all for thinking of different ways. I think also petitions are good, I mean, if students are protesting this increase, especially at a time right now where everything else has gone up and making life so much harder economically for students, maybe petitions might work also. Whatever strategies that you all come up with, I'm sure that they're going to be good, but very, very definitely, yeah, you should resist if you possibly can.
Hi, Dolores. It's an honor to meet you like this. I'm coming to you as a future educator for the little ones. I am a strong believer in culturally relevant pedagogies being taught in the classroom, ethnic studies starting from pre-K to high school. I am going into a very oppressed community in education. I want to decolonize our current education that, as we see in the classrooms, where a lot of our stories are not being told. So my question to you is, do you have any advice of how to advocate? Because as we could see in the news, a lot of our books are being banned that is based on our stories and who we are and how we identify. There is also being a lot of oppression in our education when it comes to teaching kids of certain histories and stories, what is being told, what cannot be told. A lot of teachers are not having voices with this curriculum. What is some advice to you for me as a future educator for our little ones on how I'm able to speak up for this and advocate with this in our education for elementary, middle school, and high school students?
Well, I think that one thing that I would like all the teachers to teach is in kind of the history of how the United States of America took 50% of Mexico to become the United States. Because I think sometimes we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month just to celebrate the fact that we're here. But then we have to remind people, hey, well, we were here first, okay? And that this land belonged to the indigenous people. North America and South America belong to the indigenous people of the Americas. And remind people how that history happened. You know, the Mexican-American War happened. And so here they took 50% of what was Mexico is now the United States of America. And so when people say to people, go back where you came from, we have to say, hey, we were here first. You know, the real immigrants that came to this country, the United States, were like my grandmother, the great grandmother came from Spain, or my other great grandfather that came from England. Okay. My dad's family was here saying, hi, welcome to the US. Okay. You know, so yeah, I think people have to know that history. And even sometimes we ourselves do not know our entire history. There's a really great movie called Foreigners in Their Own Lands that I would like to refer to people. It's on public television. And also about the genocides that happened in the United States, genocides that happened in Texas against Native Americans, genocide where Mexicans were also killed. People don't know that history. So I think it's always important. And even people that come in from Central America, we need to talk about the exploitation of our neighbors to the south. I like to use the word bananas. How many bananas do we consume in the United States every single day? Coffee that we drink every single day. But the money that it goes to bananas and to coffee, it goes to the banana companies, it goes to the coffee companies, and the money doesn't go to the people in Central America that produce the bananas that we eat. And so those are some of the policies that we need to change. And that's why it's important for Latinos to be able to take that power, especially in the Congress and places like that, so we can start changing some of those policies that we need to change. So we have a lot of stories that need to be told, and stories that people do not know about our history. In the current stage, you know, especially right now when we have the issue of immigration, that is going to be a really hot issue right now in the next election. If we in the United States did more to help our neighbors to the south instead of exploiting them, you know, then maybe so many people wouldn't have to be try to come to the United States. But then also there are the issues of like climate change right now that are affecting the crops of so many of the small farmers that they have there in Central America, where their crops are suffering because of global warming. So I think our stories, we need to tell our stories out there, because you know what? If we don't tell them, nobody else is going to do it for us. We're the ones that have to be the messengers. I hope that answered your question.
It did. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to have one more question before we start the film.
Hello, Dolores. I am Marco. It's very nice to meet you. So I have a question for you. I wrote it down because I lose my chain of thought. But so you grew up in a society that kind of punished you for being who you are. And although we've progressed a lot as a society, many teens struggle with self-worth. They don't feel comfortable with who they are, and therefore they don't speak out for what they believe in. They don't talk in class, and they feel afraid to sort of express themselves. So my question to you is what can you say to encourage youth to express themselves more freely?
Oh, that's a great question. I think we have to tell them that number one, that their stories are important. And I think for all of us, it's always hard to find the courage to speak up, especially when people might think that their stories that people don't want to hear what they have to say. And so, you know, I think though we're talking about students in particular, you know, kind of making them speak up, okay? Make everybody stand up and want to hear your story. You know, I remember when I was teaching school and I was in elementary school, And one year when I was doing substitute teaching, some of the kids made comments. Oh, I wonder if we're going to have, they use the N word or a Filipino person come and teach us today, substitute, and or a Mexican. And then that day afterwards, I had all of my students, I had them all stand up and say where they came from, and there was a Chinese kid in the class, and I had him go up on the blackboard and do some Chinese characters on the blackboard. And then there was a Greek student, and I had him speak Greek. I had a Mexican American speak Spanish. The next day, all the kids came with apples and flowers for me, and I had each one of them tell a story about their parents. Okay, well, these are kids in elementary school, but I think we could do that with students that are in high school or in college, in community college. Stand up and tell the story about your family. Give us like a 2-minute or 3-minute version of where you came from. You have to force it upon them, so that they're being forced to speak out. And once they do it the first time, then I think they feel more comfortable doing it. They can tell them, we want to know, we really care. We care about your story, care about the history of your family in your country. So I think you have to force it upon them.
That is very powerful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Very touching. Thank you.
So we're going to go ahead and start the film in just a minute, but I do want to recognize Dr. Jamila Guerrero Cantor, who is a faculty member in the Department of WGSS, as well as the Department of Liberal Studies. This event really was her vision. It was her idea. And she made it possible in part because of her own tireless work with the Dolores Huerta Foundation. So Professor Guerrero Cantor, if you can just sort of stand up and be recognized and come on up, and then you can sort of lead us into the screening of the film. It may be that we don't get through the entire film because we devoted more, I thought, necessary time to this amazing opportunity, right, to hear directly from Dolores Huerta. But if we don't get all the way through the film, just know that it is available through the Cal State LA library. And so you can finish watching whatever we don't screen today. I've seen this film like 6 times, so I encourage you to watch it more than once. Every time I watch it, I learn something new. But it is available to you as a resource that you can share with your families, with your friends, with other classes and your communities. So I'm just going to pass it over to Dr. Guerrero Cantor.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dolores. You're awesome.
Thank you for having me. And Jamie, can I ask the students to stand up for a minute?
Students, please
You don't
stand up.
Okay, you all, I'm gonna ask you 2 questions, and I know you know the answers, okay? As I said, we're fighting fascism in our society, we're fighting racism and sexism and all of that bad stuff. But you know who's gonna be able to stop all of that? You are, okay? So I'm gonna ask you 2 questions. I know you know the answers, but I want you to shout loud so that the haters can hear us, okay? So I'm gonna ask you the first question. I'm gonna ask you, who's got the power? I want you to say, we've got the power. Second question, what kind of power? I want you to say people power, all right? So let's go, shout it all together, really loud. Who's got the power? We got the power. What kind of power? People power. Okay, are we gonna use our people power to make education stronger and better and to fight for our democracy? What do we say? ¿Se puede o no se puede? Okay, let's do it all together. Okay, let's go. Sí se puede. Sí se puede. Is everybody clapping out there? Thank you very much for having me. Please enjoy the movie. And if you want to learn more about the Dolores Huerta Foundation, we're at doloreshuerta.org. And Jamila Cantor there is one of our board members, okay? So
Thank you, Dolores.
enjoy the movie. Okay, thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Janet. Okay, bye.